Download and upload more than ever before with an ultra-fast fiber connection. With 3 simple steps, you can be the one with an SLT fiber optic connection. Visit slt.lk.
Tonight, fall in line. President Maithripala Sirisena lambasted the Constitutional Council's conduct while addressing Parliament. Steering development. Asian Development Bank agrees to fund a master development plan on Sri Lanka's ports. Looking ahead, parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa outlines plans for the country.
We can be an active partner in the South Asian region and benefit mutually from the Indian growth as well.
Winning post. Shammi Silva secures top job for Sri Lanka cricket's presidency tonight, Thursday, the 21st of February 2019.
From Ada Derana, this is Ada Derana First at 9 with Ndivari Amuwata and Mahesh Jani. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and a warm welcome to First at 9. Of course, today too, Mahesh, good evening to you. We have a lot to report from across Sri Lanka and around the world. Finally, the cricket elections, which means we do not face the risk of being blacklisted or removed from ICC membership. And I think the President too made a very bold statement today.
Indeed, as you saw in our headlines just a short while ago, the President lambasted the Parliament. With regard to the Constitutional Council, we're going to report on that story. And there are more other stories. There's a protest which got once again tear-gassed. And then there is the story from abroad as well. We will be reporting on all that, but let's start with our lead story for tonight.
Yes, Minister of Ports, Shipping and Southern Development says a master plan supported by the Asian Development Bank will be introduced to lay a robust foundation for the ports and maritime sector's development until 2050. The Sri Lanka Ports Authority is looking towards achieving double-digit growth of 10% by the end of the year by way of improving efficiency and productivity within the sector.
Now, speaking at a media briefing of the launch of SLPA's new news website today, Minister Ratnayaka went on to say that the Oluville Harbour in the Eastern Province would be handed over to the Fisheries Ministry to be developed as a fisheries harbour. He added that the harbour, which was constructed to the tune of 46 million euros, had a merge prospect as a commercial port.
වරාය අධිකාරිය ජාතික වරාය සැලස ඒකට කියන්නේ මාස්ටර් ප්ලෑන් එක ඒකට සහාය ලැබුණා ආසියානු
ADB has agreed to support us in implementing a master plan for the development of our ports. They have put together a preliminary report of these developments until 2050, proposing several models. Any development that is carried out should ensure that there is a requirement and efficient use of our capital. Certain development work has now been concluded in the much talked about East Container Terminal. We can accommodate one ship, but we are creating terminals that can welcome 3 ships at once, together with necessary equipment. As to who will be responsible in carrying out this task is still in discussion, but once it's finalized, we will consult the cabinet and arrive at an agreement. It is difficult to carry out commercial activities at the Oluville Harbour as it is more suitable for fishing. Therefore, we made a decision upon a request by the Minister of Fisheries to hand it back to them. Following discussions with the Prime Minister last week, the government is in talks to obtain a $48 million credit line from India for the development of Kankasanture port. We have already informed Exim Bank. We hope to appoint consults and finalize this project by June. We're planning to construct 2 piers which will be used for commercial and naval purposes. In line with this project, we also hope to construct an industrial development zone.
The minister went on to say that plans are afoot to introduce night navigation at the Trincomalee and Galle harbours before the end of 2019. Meanwhile, commenting on India's involvement on the Kankasanture port development project, Ratnayaka said the matter was still under discussion.
Indian government has shown keen interest in the Sri Lanka port industry in assisting us. They don't want to go in for any major stake anywhere, but they want to be involved. What that involvement is has to be discussed. The two prime ministers have discussed that at a very high level, but we have to finalize those, and I think.
The minister was also quizzed on his thoughts of liberalising policies in relation to development of ports.
Liberalisation is a good thing. It will improve competition, but I have to be convinced that it won't harm the local industry at all. So I'm responsible to ensure that Sri Lanka is looked after. The people of Sri Lanka gets the best deal, and then anything else. Every situation will be different. It won't be the same answer to every situation. Some cases we will be very liberal on the way we think. Some cases we'll be very conservative on the way we think.
The WION Global Summit titled Unleashing the Power of South Asia kicked off in Dubai yesterday. Now, it is a gathering of hundreds of thought leaders from around the world who share common interest in exploring sustainable solutions for promoting peace and development in South Asia.
Well, piggybacking on regional development whilst making Sri Lanka's own contribution was very much the theme of UPFA parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa's plans for the country as he took part in a panel discussion in line with the summit. Well, Namal Rajapaksa aimed to put as much emphasis on Sri Lanka's policy of non-alliance and expressed that the country is aiming to adopt new approaches, especially with the neighbouring India, where it enables the island nation to mutually benefit from the growth of our neighbours.
He also went on to talk about the way out of terrorism for any country.
Well, economic cooperation, trade and development is the way out for terrorism. We have fought against the most ruthless terrorist organization for 30 years. What we learn is that the poverty, unemployment, uneducation is the main reason for terrorist organizations to arise. As a region, if we cooperate on people-centric development, keep populistic arguments of geopolitics aside, let countries prosper with economic partners and move forward as a region, then stability in individual countries, political, economic and social stability will contribute to the region.
Addressing the panel discussion themed Future of South Asia, Strategic Balances and Alliances, parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa also touched on the way forward for Sri Lanka's development plans.
Now, as a country, we are concentrating on our people-centric development to make sure that we can be a progressive partner in our regional development. Because from one side, it is the South Indian Ocean, where the One Belt, One Route initiative, and 50% of the maritime ships passes Sri Lanka. And on the other hand, India, one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and one of the biggest consumer markets in the world. Politically, government make decisions, but as a nation, we strongly believe in a non-aligned policy. And we strongly believe the NAM principles of non-interferences, non-aggression, territorial integrity, and we believe, as a nation, we should develop as a maritime and aviation hub, and we can be an active partner in the South Asian region and benefit mutually from the Indian growth as well. So we are looking at new partnership for initiatives with our neighboring countries.
The Constitutional Council was in the crosshairs of President Maithripala Sirisena today as he addressed Parliament. The head of state accused it of controlling the three pillars of democracy, the executive and the legislature as well as the judiciary. During the adjournment debate in Parliament, the President vehemently demanded that reasons behind the rejection of his nominations for certain positions of the judiciary be disclosed, as it is his right as the head of state to know so. UPFA parliamentarian Udaya Gamampila moved the debate in the House.
The Constitutional Council, which the current government established to get rid of corruption, has now become its symbol. The President mentioned Judge Deepali Vijayasundara's name for the position of Chairman of the Appeals Court because she has been a senior justice for 8 years. But that nomination was rejected. The President made the nomination for a second time, which was also rejected. There is a view in this country that the UNP rejects this nomination because she was the one who gave an unfavourable ruling to them in the White Flag Court case.
In my capacity as leader of the opposition, I was an extra-official member of the Constitutional Council for a period of 3 years. We always endeavoured to work in close cooperation with the President. My previous speaker, the person who moved the motion, referred to the fact that the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition, meaning me, were entitled to make certain appointments. Yes, we were entitled to make certain appointments. I told the Prime Minister I told you, Honourable Speaker, that I would like a member of the joint opposition to be appointed as member of the Constitutional Council. In fact, from your room, I phoned the Honourable Mahinda Rajapaksa and consulted him in regard to the person whom I should appoint from the joint opposition to the Constitutional Council. He asked me whether I had any names in mind, and when I mentioned Mr. Chamal Rajapaksa's name to him, he accepted that. And I recommended the appointment of Mr. Chamal Rajapaksa. That was how the Constitutional Council was constituted. If the mover of the motion complaining about the appointment of Honourable Chamal Rajapaksa as a member of the Constitutional Council on my recommendation, what accusation can he make in regard to any recommendation I have made when the name I have recommended is the name of a member of Parliament of the joint opposition and the brother of Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa?
The Chief Justice opposed this nomination, and that is why it was rejected. MPs were asked to send suggestions, and why didn't you send any? This problem wouldn't have arisen had members talked among themselves as to what criteria should be followed during the maiden session of the Constitutional Council itself. It is not the duty of the Constitutional Council to approve every recommendation made by the President. We agree 100% that the composition of the Constitutional Council should change. The number of MPs should be reduced. The best option is to make all 10 members independent persons. It is wrong to put the entire blame on the Speaker.
This debate is also somewhat about the ruler and the ruled. If a democracy is to prevail, the separation of powers must be protected. We have a situation where the head of state is also the head of the government. This is why it is particularly important that there must be checks and balances on the executive president. We have also had a debate recently on the Constitutional Council approving nominees on the matter of seniority. Seniority is important, but seniority alone must not be the determinant. It should be a meritocracy. Whether it is a judicial service, whether it's a public service, efficiency should be looked at. Good performance should be looked at. Integrity should be considered. You need a council because discretion has to be used in making important decisions and important appointments.
I must tell you very clearly that I have no problem with any of the appointments already made for the Supreme Court and Appeals Court. I understand that certain parties are trying to misinterpret my views in an attempt to give the wrong picture to the judiciary and the public. The 19th Amendment clearly states what should the duties be, as well as the responsibilities and principles of the Constitutional Council. But we haven't implemented any of those. I take issue with the lack of disclosure of reasons behind the rejection of these nominations. The Constitutional Council has so far rejected nominations of 14 judges. I have nominated some names at least 3 times. So don't I, as the President, have the right to know the reasons behind these rejections? As per the duties and the responsibilities vested in me by the Constitution, I not only have the legal right, but I also hold the ethical right to look into the proceedings of the Constitutional Council. The Council should not surpass the powers of the Executive President. Currently, the legislature, the executive as well as the judiciary seem to be controlled by this Constitutional Council, and there are various facts to back that up. But it is proved through the behaviour of the Constitutional Council that none of the objectives expected by the society that respects democracy and good governance have been achieved.
The government today launched a program which ensures 13 years of uninterrupted education for students. Under the new initiative titled 13 Years Certified Education, students who fail the ordinary level examination will exit from the system and instead will have the chance to take up a vocational subject at the advanced level. A ceremony was held at the Temple Trees today to mark the launch of this program.
The government today launched the program dubbed 13 Years Certified Education, which will ensure uninterrupted academic engagement for students, assuring a professionally skilled youth generation. Under the new system, students who do not pass the ordinary level examination will have the chance to proceed to advanced level and have the chance to take up a vocational subject from a choice of 26.
Under this program, if students fail to pass the ordinary level examination, they are given an opportunity to select 1 out of 26 vocational subjects in line with their talents. It paves way for them to obtain a higher education, such as a diploma or degree. Our education system was formed in the colonial era targeting university education, but schools in developed countries at present churn out students who are in fact required by the society, and that's the change we have launched today. The country for the first time has accepted that a child requires 13 years of education. We aim to give some manner of education for every child. We need professors to develop the country, and at the same time we also need a good cricket team which can win matches. When universities are deteriorating, that is a serious situation. The situation becomes worse when we fail to win matches. Our country requires 300,000 technicians and graduates who studied information technology. Finland has the world's best education system. They're of the view that a university education is not a must and students should be equipped for other sectors in society. We tailored this program to generate employment opportunities which match the country's economy.
මේ අද තියෙන ආර්ථිකයට සුදුසු විදියට රැකියා ආදායම් මාර්ග අපි ලබා දෙන්නේ.
UPFA parliamentarian Dilan Pereira says talks on the formation of a border alliance between the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna will get underway tomorrow between President Maithripala Sirisena and opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa. Addressing a media briefing held in Colombo this morning, he also said that the SLFP will not be averse to adopting the flower bud as the coalition's symbol if what's required is being achieved.
If someone makes predictions regarding the presidential elections or candidates, they imply it's okay to postpone provincial council elections. What should be done now is to collect the forces of the opposition to face provincial council elections. The discussions regarding the proposed alliance are still underway. Several leaders of the opposition held discussions regarding the matter. The Sri Lanka Freedom Party and the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna should start discussions on the technical background for the upcoming elections. The President and the leader of the opposition will start such a discussion tomorrow. United People's Freedom Alliance is not in a position to be debating on a symbol for the party. What is important is neither the symbol nor the person. What is important is the formation of plans and their execution. There will not be any issue from the Sri Lanka Freedom Party if the symbol of the alliance, through which those plans will be executed, happens to be the flower bud.
UPFA parliamentarian Kelly Rambupalla laments the slow economic growth of Sri Lanka, citing that the country's rate is one of the lowest in the region. Addressing a media briefing at the head office of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, the parliamentarian took aim at the present government's economic experts over the failure to spur growth.
Just have a look at the reports of the economic growth of South Asian countries last year. The economic growth in Nepal is 7.9%. In Bangladesh, it is 7.4%. Bhutan also reports a percentage of 7.4%. The economic growth in India is 6.4%. In Pakistan, it's 5.4%. Economic growth in the Maldives is 4.8%, but in Sri Lanka, it is 3.3%. This is how the so-called economic experts of this government have performed after the central bank robbery. Had you visited a government hospital or a regional health office, you might have seen this document. The health ministry itself now accepts that the consumption of milk powder leads to 21 diseases on infants and pregnant women. It is well known that imported milk powder is not made from cow milk. The Minister of Health doesn't have any ethical right to appear on behalf of these milk powder companies.
Police fired tear gas and water cannons to disperse a protest staged by the Inter-University Students' Federation at the Lotus Roundabout this afternoon. Now, the demonstration was against ragging at several universities and issues prevailing at the Southeastern University in the island. The protest, which commenced from the Technical Junction this afternoon, reached the Lotus Roundabout, causing heavy traffic in the area. The police first fired tear gas and water cannons when the protesters attempted to march towards the presidential secretariat, removing barriers placed by the police itself. Tear gas and water cannons were fired for a second time as the protesters were not and did not disperse. In the meantime, the administration of the management of the University of Sri Javardhanapura took the decision to close the faculty indefinitely over recent incidents of ragging within the university.
Business news is on the other side of this break. Stay with First at 9.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is Other Derana 24.
Welcome back. Business news now. Minister of Finance Mangala Samaravira is of the view that Sri Lanka has rebuilt the confidence among investors over the past 2 months, with sovereign bond yields falling over 200 basis points, and talks are underway with the International Monetary Fund to resume its program. He voiced these views addressing a function held at the American Chamber of Commerce in Colombo today.
In the lead up to the 26th of October, our government had brought stability to an economy that had been adversely affected by successive years of drought and floods, which weakened the rural incomes and hurt consumption across the economy, which brought a significant amount of pressure on our currency. However, from end October, global oil prices, as you know, began to decline. The Federal Reserve signaled an easing of their stance. Without any disruption, Sri Lanka, I believe, would have been able to enjoy a robust boost to the economy, and we would have seen a strong uplift in economic performance in 2019 by now. Unfortunately, Sri Lanka was deprived of the opportunity to benefit from these emerging tailwinds as we got engulfed in that political crisis. The resulting loss in confidence resulted in a surge of capital flight from our debt and equity markets, bleeding over $1 billion from our hard-earned foreign reserves, and we have since repaired the damage to our external sector, and markets have regained confidence in the last 2 months. Today, our external borrowing costs have declined by over 200 basis points, assuming $3 billion in fresh borrowings this year. That translates into savings of over 10.8 billion rupees. Foreign capital is now flowing back into the economy, with rupees 8 billion inflows into government securities since January. Therefore, a lot of the damage from the coup have been addressed, and the economy has again been stabilized. Continuing our reform program to build competitiveness of the economy. A key element of this would be the continuation of the IMF program, which will signal to markets our continued commitment to disciplined, rules-based economic management. The managing director of the IMF, Madame Lagarde, called Sri Lanka's economic performance a stellar performance, and at the moment, the IMF staff mission is in Colombo, continuing negotiations with the officials of the Treasury and the Central Bank. We will continue to build competitiveness by liberalizing the economy where we see excessive control and cost. The liberalization of the shipping sector is very much on the cards now.
Ratings agency S&P Global forecast another jump in borrowings by governments across the world, and it says that it will take the global mountain of sovereign debt to $50 trillion this year. The firm predicted sovereigns will borrow an equivalent of $7.78 trillion this year, which would be up 3.2% in 2018. According to the rating agency, some 70% or $5.5 trillion of sovereigns across gross borrowing will be to refinance maturing long-term debt, resulting in an estimated net borrowing requirement of about $2.3 trillion or 2.6% of the GDP of rated sovereigns. The rise in the total debt stock of $50 trillion would be a 6% rise on last year, having been partly exacerbated by exchange rate swings.
To the stock market now. The stock market fell for the fourth straight session to a near 4-month low. The all share price index fell 0.7% to 5,839.04. The turnover, meanwhile, was 1 billion rupees, more than last year's daily average of 834 million rupees. With that, we now have a brief report of today's market performance.
The bond market yield curve remained broadly steady with the overall market witnessed a moderate volume. While equity markets saw a near 1-week high turnover, mainly contributed by the closings made in hotel services, Ceylon Tobacco and Sampath Bank. The market closed the day losing 41 points, dragged down by mainly Lion Brewery and Commercial Bank. A net foreign outflow was witnessed amidst very low foreign participation.
And Sri Lanka's nationwide inflation picked up to 1.2% in the 12 months to January this year from 0.4% in December last year, the highest in 5 months. The central bank said the increase observed in year-on-year inflation in January this year was mainly driven by the base effect and increase of prices in the items in the non-food category. Non-food inflation increased to 6.5% in January from 4.7% in December last year. However, year-on-year food inflation decreased further to minus 4.8% in January from negative 4.5% in December last year. The month-on-month change of the NCPI increased by 0.2% last month.
The Sri Lankan rupee closed higher today, a day ahead of the central bank's policy rate review, boosted by dollar sales by banks in lackluster trade. The currency ended at 179 rupees and 45 to 65 cents compared with yesterday's close. Now, the rupee had posted a weekly loss of 0.42% last week due to high dollar demand from importers and outflows from the stock market. With that, let's now take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies throughout the day today.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is Other Derana 24.
Well, Mahesh, I think the weather has continued to be quite humid here in Sri Lanka, and Colombo today marked some 37 degrees Celsius in the afternoon.
Which translates it was really hot today. Well, let's get what's in store for us tomorrow. Manusha is here with the weather.
Thank you, Indivari and Mahesh, and welcome all of you to Forecast First. Taking a look at your temperatures now, the northern, northwestern and southern provinces of the country are going to be the warmest provinces in the island over the next few days, with the highest temperature expected in Puttlam as well as Hambantota district at 32 degrees Celsius. The lowest temperature of 19 degrees Celsius, meanwhile, can be expected from the central hills. Moving on to your rain forecast now, we can expect very light spells of showers in the areas of western as well as southern provinces over the next few days, but overall there will be very sunny and favorable weather conditions in the coming days. That's all that we have from the Weather Center tonight. Here's a look at your city by city weather forecast for the next 24 hours.
And that's all from us tonight. Thank you for joining us. Do log on to www.otherderana.lk. Follow us on social media, our YouTube and our Facebook sites for the very latest. And do not forget to follow us on Twitter too. I'm Indivari Amuatta.
And I'm Mahesh Johnny. Thank you very much for making us a part of your evening. Have a good night.